Okay, we're inducting, again, 2 classes. We're also inducting 3 teams. And at the tables of the teams are these little boxes of Jefferson cups for each of the team members. So please, before you go as a team member, please take one of those. For the individual honorees tonight, we have a Boys Latin medal engraved on the back. And my assistant Tyler Wolf over here will be delivering them as we introduce you and start the induction ceremony. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our Master of Ceremonies, Brandon Gaines, from the class of 1972. And I'd like to thank him for, he's been doing this since he took over for Vince Bagley, so he had big shoes to fill. And I think everybody knows, because Vince did our first one in 2006. And I think everybody knows with Brandon that this is an absolute labor of love. He loves doing this. He loves seeing you guys. He loves talking about Boys Latin athletics. And most of all, he loves Boys Latin school. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Brandon Gaines.
Hey, Matt. For the record, I'm Frank Gifford. Howard Cosell. A little bit of trivia just to warm up my voice. So, and you guys close in can't raise your hand. Who knows who the Swan is? I said not this class. You're not listening. I know. Not here. Nobody. All right, hold on. So, one of the top athletes, I think, to ever come through Boys Latin, and I think you guys would agree with this, is Doug Hilbert. And his nickname was the Swan. So when I do kind of backup information and try to get information about people, I'm always asking about nicknames, what have you. So I never knew this one. So Tommy Peace told me that when he played basketball, that he really could elevate. He could get up there. Coach Gelson, you would love this guy. Got up so high, his legs were real long, his arms were long, his hands were huge, and apparently when he got up there, he looked like a majestic swan. So, Swan, Swanee, what else? Something else? Not any more nicknames? No, all right. That didn't go over very well, by the way, so maybe I'll stop that. All right, let's get into the teams and things. So we've got the first one is the 64 football team. So prior to 1960, BL played 6-man football on Brevard Street for 17 years. And the primary reason for this is that Okie O'Connor worried that because of the size of our school, we had a small enrollment, that we could have potentially major injuries from football. But once we landed on Lake Avenue in 1960, we returned to 11-man football. And in our first season, we won only 1 game. In the 63 varsity year, we did 5-2-1. And the coaches knew that they had great talent on both sides of the ball, and that we had a great future coming up. By the fall of 64, something special was happening on the gridiron. BL was coached by Bob Peahead, yes, Peahead Walker, and Bill Thomas, 2 visionary coaches. Co-captain Tommy Peace shared this about the coaching staff. Coach Walker was totally dedicated and ahead of his time. He actually installed a pro-style offense with multiple formations that was executed to perfection by his quarterback, Bruce Reed. Each week, Coach Walker would add a new wrinkle to the offensive scheme. Coach Thomas also was also an incredible scout and produced scouting reports on the competition that even John Harbaugh would have loved. He's also responsible for the line play and a 5-3 tough and stingy defense. With the gifted players on this team and the exceptional coaching talent on the sidelines, this team went 7-0, recording 5 shutouts and outscoring their opponents 180-12. 180-12. Wow. Keep in mind that there were only 26 kids on the 64 varsity football team. That's really amazing, and they really put BL's football program back on the map. That season helped to end another negative statistic that had haunted Boys Latin for years. It seems we hadn't beaten St. Paul's in football since the late 30s. That year we put an end to that streak with a 16-0 victory. Now this is an amazing stat. So BL had an incredibly gifted junior and senior class with a sprinkling of some very talented sophomores that really contributed to the team as well. And in lacrosse, they went 10-0 that spring. And then in the fall, they went 7-0 in football. I don't think that kind of a record has ever been repeated that we're aware of. Please welcome the 1964 football team into the BL Hall of Fame. Okay, we're going to do Tim Merritt, who was one of my classmates. Tim came to BL in the fall of '66. He earned 5 varsity letters, 3 in soccer, 2 in basketball. Coach Gelston, who coached Tim in both soccer and basketball, shared that he always tried to recruit a basketball player as a soccer goalie because he had great hands and great length. Even though BL's soccer team was in its infancy, Tim kept the team in many games due to his acrobatic saves. In his senior year against Friends School, Tim had 18 saves in the first game and 17 saves in the second game. He followed this performance with 17 saves against Lutheran and 15 saves against McDonough. But Timmy, Butch Meisel over here, wants everyone to know that as good as Tim was in the goal, he did not save my game-winning goal back in the '71 McDonough BL game. Todd Guntner shared these thoughts about his teammate. Leadership is diving for a loose ball, getting the crowd involved, getting other players involved. And I forgot to mention we're talking about his basketball prowess here. It's being able to take it as well as dish it out. That's the only way you're going to get respect from the players. Tim, you earned my utmost respect by the way you played the game like there was no tomorrow. And you were one of the biggest reasons our '71 and '72 teams performed at such a high level and won so many games. Tim led by example, was not afraid to get down and dirty, diving and scrapping for every loose ball, muscling for position many times against bigger and stronger opponents, and always managing to get that timely and important rebound that helped us play winning basketball. Tim was a rebound machine, and at the end of his career at BL, he had amassed 555 rebounds over 2 years, averaging over 11 rebounds per game and 389 points. Tim, welcome to the BL Hall of Fame. And now we've got Kevin Waters, class of '77. Coach Gelston operated a summer basketball camp every summer at BL. Kevin attended his camp in the summer of '73. From the moment Coach Gelston saw him on the court, he knew that Kevin was an incredibly gifted athlete. Kevin came to Boys Latin in the fall of '73 as an 8th grader. That fall, Kevin played on the JV team primarily. The first time JV coach Tommy Peace saw him on the court, he was in awe. He shared this. In the 8th grade, Kevin was already a physical specimen, standing 5 feet, 10 inches tall, with a muscular, chiseled body, and already dominating the court. Coach Peace went on to say that not only was Kevin a special athlete, but the best part was that he made all his teammates better. During the Christmas holiday break in '72, Kevin led the BL 8th grade basketball team to the championship of the St. Mary's Govans basketball tournament, which featured a number of future city basketball stars. The JV went on to an 18-5 record that year, with Kevin as the standout player. In '73, the Baltimore Sun wrote that Kevin was the MSAC Conference's most promising newcomer. The next year, he started on the varsity as a freshman and was named first team All-MSAC Conference, averaging over 21 points and almost 14 rebounds per game, which set BL records. Coach Gelston said that Kevin was extremely strong, and if he got anywhere near the basket, he was unstoppable. As a sophomore, Kevin led the team to a conference title and an 11-1 record. That year, he was named MSAC Conference Player of the Year. He was also second in scoring and rebounds in the league. In the fall of '75, Kevin left BL and transferred to public school powerhouse Walbrook High School to play better competition and improve his game. The Lakers finished second that year, he missed Boys Latin and actually returned for his senior year. The Lakers finished second that year to McDonough with a 10-3 league mark and a 19-9 overall record. Kevin was BL's leading scorer and rebounder for the third time in 4 years. By the end of his career, Kevin had amassed 1,446 total points in 3 years, which for 41 years was the most by any Laker. Kevin wrote on his senior page in the yearbook, "If I never do a thing in my life, or if I do, I'm glad I attended BL for 4 of the happiest and helpful years of my life." Sadly, Kevin died in 2010 at the age of 50. Let's welcome Kevin Waters into the BL Hall of Fame.
We're going to do a tag team here, so. Henry Ciccarone. Henry, where are you? I think everybody knows that the Ciccarone family is rich in lacrosse history. Of course, he's the son of the Hopkins legend, Henry Sr., who coached Hopkins for many years. And I don't think if anyone in this city or in this area thinks of Hopkins lacrosse or even Baltimore lacrosse, you can't help yourself but think of the Ciccarone family. They're lacrosse giants in this area for sure. He transferred to BL his junior year, and his brothers John and Brent also went to BL, and all were distinguished athletes. And John, who's here tonight, was inducted into our Hall of Fame in 2012. Henry is very humble, but he had a burning desire to be the best and to win. He liked to win. He was also a great student, and he was a member of the National Honor Society here at Boys Latin. And he was an outstanding midfielder, and he led BL to 2 championship games in his 2 seasons playing for Ridge Warfield. 2 title games is an indication, I think, of his incredible talent. And Ridge Warfield, our former coach, Ridge passed away recently. He loved Henry. And when Ridge loved you, he didn't hold back the accolades. But that's not to say he just gave them out to anybody. You had to be a special player to Ridge to get those types of accolades. And here's what Ridge told the media in 1979, Henry's senior year. For 2/3 of the season, the '79 season, Henry was our entire offense. He was a midfielder, remember. Without him, we never would have won a big game. So much of the burden was on him. I've never had a kid for whom other teams developed a whole defense, but it happened against Calvert Hall, Loyola, and St. Mary's. They all did it just to suit one player, Henry Ciccarone. And I looked it up in the Loyola game. They put a guy on Henry everywhere he went. So if Henry went out of the game, this kid went out of the game. If Henry went down to the corner of the field, this guy followed him. Senior year, he was the captain of the team. He was a high school All-American and the first team All-Metro, and also was Boys Latin's Kelly Award nominee. And here's a remarkable number. For a midi, he had 39 goals and 12 assists, and the team only played 17 games that year. After leaving Boys Latin, he went right down the road and played for his dad at Hopkins and became a 3-time All-American in college and was a member of Johns Hopkins' title team in 1980. And I think his former coach, Bob Shriver, who assisted Coach Warfield in 79, I think encapsulated Henry's talents the best. Henry was so talented, he could do anything on a lacrosse field. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Henry Ciccarone in the Boys Latin Athletic Hall of Fame.
Charles Chuck White, class of '84. Chuck came to BL in the 4th grade. He was a leader on and off the field and well respected by his fellow classmates. In athletics, he was a standout in both soccer and lacrosse, earning 3 letters in each. In soccer, Chuck played defense and captained the Lakers squads both his junior and senior years. During his junior year, the Lakers went 12-2 and gave up only 14 goals all season, including 4 shutouts. Coach Shriver coached Chuck in both soccer and lacrosse. Bobby had this to say: "I taught Chuck in the 7th grade. His real name is Charles, and I always liked Charlie the tuna fish, ads from StarKist. He soon became known as Charlie the tuna fish, and eventually that morphed into Charlie, tuna, or the fish." Chuck was a tenacious competitor and started for me for 3 years. No one I coached had more heart than Chuck. In '83, he was the anchor of the varsity lacrosse defense and really began to shine. Chuck excelled in unsettled situations, checking opponents' sticks in the open field and gobbling up ground balls. He was a true ground ball machine. He quickly became one of the best defenders in the MSA. In '83, he was named 2nd team All-Metro by the News American and honorable mention All-Metro by the Sun. In '84, Coach Shriver assigned Chuck to cover every opponent's best attackman and helped lead the team into the MSA championship game. BL had a record of 16-1 and lost the championship in a heartbreaker to the Dons, 8-6. At the end of the season, Chuck was named not only to the 1st team All-Metro squad by both the News American and the Sun papers, but also received high school All-American honors as well. Bobby told the Baltimore Sun that Chuck was the top defenseman in the MSA that year. He does everything extremely well in the field. Please welcome Chuck White to the BL Hall of Fame. Charlie Toomey, class of '86. Charlie Toomey always loved lacrosse. Coach Shriver shared, "I'm not sure exactly how it all happened, but in the spring or the summer of '84, this goaltender from Archbishop Spalding really wanted to play in the MSA conference, arguably the best high school conference in the country. BL got a real gift when Charlie entered our lacrosse program. Charlie's commitment was impressive because he commuted every day to Lake Avenue from Annapolis. One lasting memory is that he was often late for school, but never for practice, during weekends or holidays. I'm not sure how many speeding tickets he got, but I'm sure it was a ton. He was a tremendous player and a leader from day one. In the spring of '85, Bobby had a tough decision to make at goalie. There were 4 different goalies that had the talent to start. But in the end, Charlie got the call. The first game of the season was a rematch of the '84 championship game with the Dons. BL beat the Dons 9-8 with Charlie making 13 saves, including 2 stops in the final seconds to close out the game for the Lakers. The regular season continued with 10 more wins, and in many of those games, Charlie had double-digit saves. The stage was set. BL was going to play the Dons again for the MSA championship at UMBC. The Lakers had to be feeling some extreme pressure. 1966 was the last time that we had won the title, and since then we had lost 5 previous attempts to take home the crown. Charlie set the tone early. At the opening face-off, the Dons had a fast break opportunity, and Charlie made a tough save in the muddy crease. At the end of the game, BL had taken care of business and beaten the Dons 7-4 and secured their ranking as number 1 in the MSA. The '86 season was almost a repeat of '85. Charlie was co-captain, and they made it once again to the championship game, but lost 8-3. Charlie ended his impressive 2-year career in the cage with a record of 24 wins and 5 losses. I'm going to end this talk with a special tribute for you, Charlie, from your 2019 Tewarton Award winner and fellow Laker, Pat Spencer. First off, I'd like to say congratulations to Coach Toomey on the tremendous honor here tonight. While I didn't get a chance to spend any time with him on Lake Avenue, I was fortunate enough to share 4 amazing years with him right down the road. He gave me the opportunity of a lifetime to attend Loyola when very few others were willing to take a chance on me. For that, I am eternally grateful. It goes without saying that Coach Toomey is the ultimate leader. His character is exactly what the Loyola men's lacrosse program embodies. Blue collar, hardworking, resilient are just a few of the traits that come to mind. The quality that I admired most was his loyalty. From day one, he had my back all the way through. Not only was he an incredible mentor and coach, he's also an incredible friend. I'm honored that I was able to be a small part of his Hall of Fame career. Congratulations on the well-deserved Hall of Fame honor, Coach Pat. Please welcome Charlie Toomey to the BL Hall of Fame.
Michael Lutz. Where are you, Mike? Where are you, Lutzy? There you are. Mike came to BL his sophomore year. He was on 2 title soccer teams under Coach Butch Meisel, including the 1986 16-0 team, which is arguably the best soccer team in the history of BL. And the 2 stars, Steve Nichols and Jeff Ewell, are here. Where are you guys? Hall of Famers. They're here tonight. That was a great team. Here's what Butch, actually senior year, Lutzy was the captain of the team and later named an honorable mention All-Metro. And here's what Coach Meisel wrote. His appearance on the soccer team was a key element in the success of the team. He was an anchor in the defensive middle and was masterful in our transition game. In lacrosse, he played for Coach Shriver for 3 years. Bobby wrote, quote, "Mike was fearless, tough, and as good on ground balls as anyone BL ever had." And we've had a lot of great ground ball guys. He scored the winning goal in the amazing 8-7 win over Loyola in the title game that BL won again 8-7 in 1988. And that same year, he won the ground ball award, no surprise. And again, we all know how important ground balls are in the game of lacrosse. At the season's end, he was all MSA and all Metro. And then he played college ball at Loyola for 3 years and had a nice career down the street at Loyola. Sidebar, senior year. Mike decided that it was more important to skip spring practice because he went to the Caribbean with Mark Moxley. While the team was running, Mike and Mox were getting terrific tans and eating and drinking and living the island's life. When they returned to Baltimore, Coach Shriver saw these two players and they had significant skill levels, but they were pathetically out of shape. Shriver justifiably berated the two, made them run, and of course scolded them perhaps what seemed like endlessly. When Mike told me the story, he had a great big smile on his face, but of course he usually has a happy face. After the story and the description of the Shriver tirades, Mike said with that infectious smile, "But we had terrific tans and we looked great." Lutzy wanted me to thank Coach Shriver on his behalf for reaching out back in the fall of 1985 when he was between schools and helping him to coordinate a meeting with Dyson. And thank you, Dyson, for meeting with me and my dad and accepting me midterm into BL with open arms and giving me a second chance. Without you guys, my brother and I wouldn't have been Lakers. And of course, thank you to my parents who couldn't be here tonight for their tireless support, sacrifice, and patience throughout the years. And Mike encapsulates what really all of this Hall of Fame and this evening really means to all of us writing. He would like to mention 2 former teammates and friends who are no longer with us. Johnny Barsick, who Johnny B, I think, as you all remember him, his line mate and face-off man for 2 years, and goalie John Baker. Quote, this is Mike writing, "You guys are missed, but not forgotten. I consider myself very fortunate to be part of the BL community. Before I arrived at BL my sophomore year, I literally didn't know a single person in the school. But now, 35 years later, my BL teammates are still my closest friends and brothers for life." Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mike Lutz from the Boys Latin Athletic Hall of Fame. Derek Robinson from the class of '89, and unfortunately Derek can't be with us tonight, and I'll just give you a short synopsis of his career. He was an incredible athlete and had 10 varsity letters, and someone referred to him as BL's Jerry Rice because he was just amazing on the football field. He out-jumped all the defenders consistently, and Brian Kowitz, who's here tonight, remembers if he could get the ball in Derek's vicinity, Derek would catch it. He had outstanding quickness and speed, and in the 1988 BL St. Paul's game, he caught a 41-yard touchdown to help BL defeat SP 13-8. He was an all-Metro in football as a receiver, and when you think about it, it's quite an accomplishment for a school like BL to have a kid on this all-Metro team from Boys Latin. It just shows you really how good he was. And for Coach Gelson, he was his leading scorer on the basketball team as a junior, and he was the second leading scorer as a senior. And in absentia, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Derek Robinson into the Boys Latin Athletic Hall of Fame. to next introduce Butch Meisel, who will present Kevin Lutz to you all. Butch.
It's quite an honor to be able to do this. When Kevin asked me to introduce him, I guess months ago, I said, absolutely, can't wait to do it. Without further ado, Kevin is one of the best athletes I think this school has ever had. Two-sport athlete, lacrosse and soccer, where I'm very familiar with. He's one of the best players in both of those sports. I know in lacrosse he finished his career with over 100 goals. I believe he's in the top 20 all-time scoring. And I think Kevin's the kind of lacrosse player that he was in soccer. Tough, tenacious, nose for the goal, and you could always count on him to get the job done, even when he was injured, which he was for me several times. Just one of the greatest players I've ever been able to coach. I know in soccer he was an all-metro player, and I think that was a year when we were in the A conference, which was not easy. All the A conference teams were trying to double team him and mark him out, which wasn't real easy. Kevin was a tough nut. And I'll give you one quick anecdote, which is the one I wanted to say for a long time. It was a Gilman game, and this is Kevin. We're playing Gilman, which we beat almost every year anyway, along with that school down on Falls Road. We were playing Gilman. I think it was a wet day. It was either his junior or senior year. And there was a direct kick from probably 25, maybe 30 yards out. And I'll never forget it. We put the ball down. The Gilman goalie looked at Kevin and went, "Bring it on." And I looked at the bench and went, "That's not a smart thing to do." Kevin took 2 seconds, ripped this ball upper 90. The team mobbed him, and he turned around, looked at the goalie, and I think he blew him a kiss. Anyway, it's a real honor to welcome him into the Athletic Hall of Fame. Kevin.
Scott Hochstad from Los Angeles. Scott, there he is over here, from the class of 95. In lacrosse, he was a 4-year player for Coach Bob Schreiber, and to make the team as a freshman on the varsity is quite an accomplishment. Bob Schreiber said at the time, Scott played with great joy and demeanor. And Scott told the media in 95 that Scott works and plays as hard as any player Boys Latin has ever had. He was a consummate team player. Scott told the media in 1995, quote, "I'll do whatever is asked of me. I'll do anything to win." Scott scored 26 goals and 17 assists his junior year and 16 goals and 12 assists his senior year. And again, he led his team in ground balls as a senior. He was a member of the 1992 runner-up team that lost just 2 games that season, both to St. Paul's by 1 goal. Ooh. And he helped lead BL to the 1995 MIAA finals against Gilman. He is a real winner. Check this out. In 4 years playing with BL, wearing maroon and white, he led the Lakers to a record of 61-12. Not too shabby. He's a 2-time first-team All-Metro midfielder attackman. And he also had a great career at Maryland, and he lettered there for 4 years. And he's a legacy, because his dad, Ira, you're here tonight, right? Ira Hochstad, fabulous defenseman at Maryland. He followed his dad down to Maryland. He's one of the Terps' all-time leading scorers with 153 points, and he's currently running his company in LA, the Legends brand, and has been a big supporter of BL athletics. And he's also his brother Craig is also a member of the class of 1998. However, Scott might be best remembered for his foot and what he did as a junior when he kicked perhaps the most historic field goal in Boys Latin football history. It was a 39-yard field goal in the 3rd quarter. And at the time, no one thought that was going to last very long. It was the 3rd quarter. Calvert Hall was huge. They were ranked 8th They were undefeated, and they had a Division I caliber running back who BL managed to gang tackle the entire game. Again, BL was heavily outweighed, and Coach Drew Hall, who Drew's here tonight, he challenged his team with, I think, one of the best slogans in BL athletics. He told his team, quote, "When you slay Moby Dick, you have to bring lots of tartar sauce." BL ended up defeating the Hall 3-0 that day because of Scott's field goal. And later, Coach Hall went out and bought the biggest tub of tartar sauce he could find and allowed the team to dump it on his head. Drew kept his word, and the saucing took place the following Monday at practice. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Scott Hochstadt in the BL Athletic Hall of Fame. Jason Quenzer, a teammate and good friend of Scott's. Jason was a four sport athlete, 4 sports, football, soccer, basketball, and lacrosse. And he won the Tilly Woodward Cup for effort in 3 sports. He was an he was on the MIAB conference championship team his senior year, and he was all Baltimore City, all Baltimore County in soccer. He finished his soccer career with 33 goals and 14 assists. And he was the top scorer on the team as a junior and as a senior. And he was named second team All-City County by the Baltimore Sun. Butch Meisel writes, "Jason was an impact player. Opposing teams had to know where he was always. His ability and leadership were key factors in our 1994 championship run. Teams around the league gave a sigh of relief when the last Quenzer graduated from Boys Latin. However, we still have Quenzers here because his son's Cole, who's here tonight, and his younger son, where is this? Help? Yes, are both Boys Latin Lakers. So it's great to still have Quenzers here on campus. Coach Shriver had him play the pole and close defense, and Coach Shriver writes that he was big, strong, fast, and competitive. He was a true warrior and an extremely valuable leader. His senior year, he was All-Metro First Team Defense. He was later an All-American as a player at UMBC under the great Coach Don Zimmerman, whose son Jake also was a Laker. And he also played with fellow BL Hall of Famer Chris Turner at UMBC, and Chris is here tonight as well. But perhaps the best story that I could find from Jason was the fake punt story. And Drew Hall, again, was involved in this. What's that? Anyway, it was against Severn, I believe, and Drew called Jason over because Jason was about to punt the ball and said, "Can you do a fake punt and run down the sidelines? I think we can get a first down." And Jason agreed. "I can do that, coach." So they called the fake punt play. Jason runs down the sideline and gets obliterated by 5 or 6 Severn people. Now remember, he's playing football and soccer, and he is perhaps Butch's best player. Butch went berserk. He went crazy and told Drew, "He's my best player and I can't win without him." So Drew and Jason decided they will solve this problem going forward. They will continue to have the fake punts, but they will only call them on away games so Butch wouldn't know they were doing it. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Jason Quenzer into the Boys Latin Athletic Hall of Fame. Danny LaMonica, I'm not sure if Danny could make it. Danny, are you here? Okay, Danny couldn't make it, but you talk about your incredible gifted athlete, Danny was it. Coach Shriver said he was unselfish and possessed terrific vision, was simply one of the best attackmen we've ever had. as gifted an athlete as ever played lacrosse on Lake Avenue. Undoubtedly, BL through the years had incredible attack units, and he teamed up with Danny Berger and Brian Lee to unquestionably make up one of the greatest attack units BL really has ever had. These three guys were amazing. He led the team to the title game in 2000, which we unfortunately lost. And he finished his BL career with 285 points, 116 goals, and 169 assists. And for many years, he was the leading goal scorer and point scorer at Boys Latin until Chris Boland surpassed him. And now Shaq Stanwyck is the leader. But Danny's still in third place in all-time goal and assist leaders. He led the team in scoring for 3 years, and only 4 other people have done that. Mickey Webster, Phil Federico, Chris Boland, and Shaq. Not bad company. He was first team All-Metro. He was high school All-American. And in 2000, he won the Kelly Award as the best lacrosse player in Maryland. He later lettered for the Maryland Terps and still holds the record for most points in a season by a freshman with 51. And he was a member of the BL Spirit Club, and most people remember when he painted his body all maroon with a big white BL on his chest. But unfortunately, we still lost the game 35-0, so all for naught. And Dyson has been watching BL lacrosse since 1950 and said this about Danny. Danny is just a natural. There is nothing he couldn't do on the lacrosse field, or anything athletic. He made difficult tasks on the field just look so darn easy. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Danny LaMonica and the Boys Latin Athletic Hall of Fame. So real quick, if we could get the entire class of 2020 to stand right there for a final recognition as we get on to the next class. If you guys all please stand. We are now going to go work on the class of 2022, and again, I'll hand the microphone off to Brandon.
Okay, we're going to start with the 66 lacrosse team. All these youngsters sitting right here in front of me. Boys Latin dominated the MSA lacrosse world from 63 to 66. Over this 4-year span, BL's varsity lacrosse team had a record of 44-4 against high school competition and suffered only 2 losses. BL won the title in 64. In 65, the team lost only 1 game in overtime to the eventual champion, Severn. In spite of these amazing results, Boys Latin did not get the respect that they deserved. The Baltimore Sun wrote, and I quote, that the winner of the annual Gilman St. Paul's game usually takes the lacrosse crown. The 66 team was determined not to let that happen. Boys Latin had a strong nucleus of returning players. The one major issue is that they had no depth. They only had 24 guys on the team. Additionally, Mace made this incredible move where he took his top defenseman, Doug Hilbert, and put him on the first midfield unit. And then Mace said, you guys are going to have to play almost every minute of every game if we're going to win this crown. Coach Rye Chapman actually clocked this midfield unit at one of their games and discovered that for only a total of 38 seconds was the first unit not playing on the field. They were known as the legendary 60-minute midfield. Now that's funny because the games were only 50 minutes long, but they're the infamous 60-minute midfield. With BL's talent, they ripped through the competition until they reached the MSA Private School Championship game against St. Paul's. Dyson shared that it was a blistering 90 degrees that day. One of St. Paul's coaches grabbed ice and said, look, we're going to run 3 midfields against you guys today, and we're going to run you into the ground. It was a tough physical game, but when the final whistle blew, BL had knocked off St. Paul 7-5. Yeah, that's great. Anytime. The winner of the private school division at that time then played the winner of the public school division to see who would compete for the MSA crown. That year, City won the public school championship. I talked with one of their top players, Mark Warrens, last week. He told me that City played BL, and I didn't know this, in a preseason game, and BL won 11-9. He said it really gave my teammates a lot of confidence going into the championship game that we could run with BL. As it turned out, BL crushed City 11-3 and took the MSA crown. The team members received a lot of postseason accolades that year. For the first time ever in the coaches' poll, and probably of all time, the first midfield unit comprised of Doug Hilbert, John Brizendine, and Bruce Regan were all selected to the MSA first team. An incredible, just an incredible team. Let's welcome them to the BL Lacrosse Hall of Fame. Now, as good as that was, there's a story that began back in '66, and I'm going to share it with you. That's, I think, great. Just a wonderful human interest story. So Mark Warrens, I told you I talked to him, and I think Bob Getz shut him down that day. He was their star. Bob's not here today. And so when I talked to him and we talked about the game, he said, you know, Brandon, in '66, boys Latin broke my heart. He said, who knew that 40 plus years later that BL would save my son? And I know the story, and I think a lot of people here may know this when I get into this, but it's a great story. Coach Drew Hall shared this with me. I noticed this kid that always seemed to be standing on the corner of Lake Avenue and Falls Road with his yellow bike, always waving at cars next to Pepe's. Drew asked his JV team members, hey, does anybody know this kid? And Drew Pinsky said, yeah, I know Mark. He's a great kid. And they asked Pinsky to bring him to one of their games. So he brought him the next day to practice, and he sat on the sideline. Then he filled Coach Hall in about Mark's medical condition and how he loved cars and stood at the bottom of Lake Avenue for hours just watching cars go by. I don't think Mark had a lot of friends, but after coming to the St. Mary's game, he became bigger than life. We dedicated the game to him, and we won in overtime. We credited Mark with the win, and he has been a fixture at BL ever since. A lack of nitrogen to his brain during birth caused some developmental issues. Mark has a huge heart and a huge reservoir of unconditional love. That kid is what all of us should aspire to be. Because of Mark, I'm a better person today, more understanding, caring, more loving. Mark has made such a positive impact on the kids and so many people at Boys Latin. The Lord works in mysterious ways. I love these stories because it just points up the caliber of young men, students that we have, the teachers that we have, the coaches that we have. So if you don't know them already, the next time that you go to a BL game, ask somebody to introduce you to Mark Warrens Jr., AKA the mayor of Lake Falls, and introduce yourself. He's a savant when it comes to his memory. He'll never forget your name. From that moment on, he'll never forget the car that you drive. And I promise you that you'll never forget him either. That's just a great story, I think. Thank you, Drew Hall. Okay, the 72 basketball team. Know these guys well. In a nutshell, you could sum up the 72 basketball team season by what happened in the semifinal game of the Lakers' first invitational tournament. The Lakers were playing Sanford of Delaware, who was led by Henry Hicks, who would go on to play at North Carolina for the legendary coach, Dean Smith. Down 12-2 to Sanford at the half, the Lakers ignited a second half comeback off the shooting of Todd Guntner, the passing of Scooter Dorney, and the rebounding of Tim Merring, and went on to win the tournament and etch their names in the record book as the Lakers' first invitational tournament winner. Coach Gelston said that we had all the pieces that year. The Lakers would go on to encounter more battles throughout the season, including an incredible come-from-behind win against Delaney, the eventual county champions. They would often rely on Guntner, Dorney, and Merring, complemented by Duncan Smith and John Braxton, and an incredibly strong bench made up of Jim Kennedy, Mike McKegney, Lowell Sherrod, Dexter Tompkins, and Keith Scroggins. It's interesting to note that 4 of the starters averaged in double figures for scoring, with the 5th player averaging 9.8 points per game. It took a great coach, future Hall of Famer Snuffy Gelston, to create and mold the 72 team into a championship unit. The Lakers would go on to a record of 22-2 that year. They started the year with 2 defeats, one to the Catholic League champs Loyola, and then a loss to the B Conference runner-ups Douglas. The team then ran the table with 21 straight wins, the longest winning streak that year. The team was led by Todd Guntner and Scooter Dorney, who both played 4 years on the varsity, and at the end of their careers, both were 1,000-plus point scorers. The team won the first outright MSA championship since the '61 team won the MSA private school title. They were the first BL team to break the top 10 high school ranking at number 8 in the News American poll. The team members acknowledged that the BL student body, families, and friends were our very important 6-man that year. Both at home and away, the stands were packed with passionate BL fans. The 72 team was energized by their spirited support throughout that magical year. Coach Gelston was quoted in the 72 Sun Paper article that in '66, the Lakers were struggling to win 1 game. The article went on to say it's been half a decade marked by some colossal growth in the round ball sport on Lake Avenue. Another Sun headline stated, "Guntner helps Boys Latin become a legitimate 2-sport school." Boys Latin's basketball program had finally arrived. Eventually, Guntner, Dorney, Coach Gelston, and tonight Tim Merring will have been inducted into the BL Sports Hall of Fame. Please welcome the 1972 basketball team to the BL Hall of Fame. And now Lowell Sherrod, the class of 73. Lowe came to BL in the 8th grade. He was a 3-sport athlete, earning 6 varsity letters, 1 in football, 2 in cross country, and 3 in basketball. He played on 2 championship teams for Coach Gelston. Coach Gelston shared this: Lowe had great ability, was a strong shooter from any range, with the unique ability to hang in the air, it seemed like forever, while shooting. Teammate Phil Federico said this: Lowe was the Iceman and as smooth as silk. When he was on the court, Lowe said very little and let his play do the talking for him. When he did speak, his teammates listened carefully. As a player, Lowe was a pure shooter. For such a quiet soul, Lowe had an inner intensity on the basketball court. Lowe was not only a great basketball player, but a fabulous teammate. Another teammate, Keith Scroggins, shared these thoughts. Lowe was blessed with excellent leaping ability and an incredible fadeaway left-handed shot. Lowe joined the varsity as a sophomore. His playing time and his point totals increased each year. By his senior year, it was Lowe's time to be the leader of the varsity basketball team. His senior year was his best. We did not have a big man in the middle, so Lowe was counted on to rebound and score. He led his team in scoring with an average of 19 points per game. Lowe had multiple 20-plus games against strong rivals Gilman and John Carroll. By the end of the year, he was the top scorer in 17 of BL's 32 games. His highest point total was 30 against the county powerhouse Delaney. Lowe had an almost unblockable jump shot and a smooth finger roll shot. When questioned about his unorthodox and deadly jump shot, he simply stated, "Look, when I was a kid and learning to play in the city, I got tired of seeing my shot smacked down to the other end of the court. I was tired of watching Adrian, his brother, play while I sat on the sidelines." Lowe finished his career as one of Coach Gelston's top 20 scorers of all time with a total of 594 points. Lowe never bragged about his academics or his athletic accomplishments. In short, he was just one of the guys, a true Laker. Lowe, welcome to the BL Hall of Fame. Okay, Lee Burrs, class of 75. I know some of his classmates are here, but Lee had another commitment this week that prevented him from being here. Lee started at BL in the fall of '66 as a 4th grader. He was one of the top students in his class and was selected as a member of the National Honor Society in '74. In athletics, he was a 3-sport athlete, earning 8 letters, 3 in football, 3 in wrestling, and 2 in lacrosse. Teammate Phil Federico had this to share: "Nobody worked harder than Lee Burris. When most people were getting to practice, Lee already had a good sweat going. When most teammates were on their way to the locker room after practice, Lee was still on the field. In football, there was not a more driven two-way player in our conference than Lee. He played center and linebacker and was big, strong, and exceptionally quick. Hugh Andes was the quarterback and Lee was his center. Hugh told me that Lee was an impenetrable force. He was all Tri-County his junior and senior years. On the lacrosse field, he played defense and pushed himself and his teammates to be the best. With his wrestling acumen and understanding of leverage, Lee could play like someone inches taller and pounds heavier while not losing any speed. He was the consummate team player. Drew Hall, one of his young teammates on the wrestling team, had this to share. Lee wrestled 165 pounds and I wrestled 100 pounds. So Lee and many of the other guys on the team were bigger than life to me. I remember how determined he was to win. He had the perfect build for a 165-pounder. He was strong, agile, flexible, and confident in his skills. I looked up to the older guys, and Lee was the type of person that treated me as an equal. He was always respectful and encouraged me on and off the mat. He had a great sense of humor, and it was an honor to be his teammate. Lee was a 3-year starter on the wrestling team. In his junior year, he finished the season at 165 pounds and placed in the top 4 in the MSA tournament season's end. As a senior, he was co-captain and did not lose a match during the regular season. He was seeded number 2 in the MSA tournament and finished second, losing 5-0 to the tournament's top wrestler. Let's welcome Lee Burris into the BL Hall of
Fame. John Friedman from the class of 1976. Please. John was my classmate and this was and is an incredibly humble guy. And he was an incredibly kind classmate. Everyone in our class liked John. Yes.
Get it all ready for me?
Like Lee Burris, John was smart on and off the field. And Matt, he was a member of the National Honor Society. He was an excellent student and was a two-way lineman for Ridge Warfield. And because of his size and quickness, he never, ever left the field. Ridge told the Baltimore News-American, quote, "In my opinion, he's the best tackle in the city." And again, Ridge did not hand out compliments easily, but yeah, absolutely. And Ridge continued, "I know he's the best we've ever had at Boys Latin for sure." Again, Ridge did not hand out those type of compliments to just anyone. John was all Tri-County lineman and the team MVP his senior year, and he was one of 5 finalists in the area's Scholar Athlete, sponsored by the Greater Baltimore chapter of the National Football Foundation and Hall of Fame. Quite an honor. He was BL's heavyweight wrestler for 2 years, and in 1976, his senior year, he was the team's MVP. He came in 4th in the 1976 MSA wrestling tournament. And he was a 4-year varsity tennis player. And by his senior year, he was BL's #1 player, battling some of the top tennis players in the state. And I could be wrong, but I doubt it. I don't believe in the history of area high school tennis that a school's two-way interior lineman in football was also the school's #1 tennis player. It shows you how much of a great athlete John was. And again, he also was the winner of the Woodward Cup for effort in 3 sports. And he wanted to continue his football career at Harvard, but a neck injury prevented him from continuing his athletic career. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming John Friedman in the BL Athletic Hall of Fame. Sean Holub, class of '89. Sean, where are you? There you are. Sean was, like John, was also an excellent student and also a member of the National Honor Society. And I think athletic director Michael Thomas said it best recently. When I think of Laker baseball, Brian Kowitz and Sean Hollop are the first two Lakers that come to mind. And I think everybody else would agree with that. He was a power-hitting right-handed batter. Sean, somewhere it said you were a left-handed batter, and I got it wrong, but did you ever switch head? Maybe? He was a right-handed power hitter. Somewhere the son got it wrong or I got it wrong. One of the coaches said he was a hard-nosed player who can hit and field with the best. He was the anchor of the BL infield during his 4 years playing baseball here on Lake Avenue, and there were many times when Sean was basically carrying the team. He pitched a two-hitter against Gilman, leading the Lakers to a 7-2 win, and it was BL's first win over our neighbors down the street in over 50 years. His senior year, he hit .508. Pretty incredible. Every 2 times he came up to bat, he got a hit. He was named to the MIAB conference team and played in the Crown All-Star game at Memorial Stadium. And he continued his career at Hopkins under the legendary coach Bob Babb. And he played summer ball for Johnny's, and some of the Johnny's alumni include some names I think we all know: Reggie Jackson, Gavin Floyd, and Al Kaline also played for Johnny's. In 1992, when he graduated from Hopkins, he was drafted by the Brewers and played briefly in rookie league ball. And his 2 brothers, Travis and Tyler, are also BL Lakers. And Tyler is still working in baseball as a scout for the Seattle Mariners and living down in North Carolina. And what baseball fan could ever forget Sean's dad, Mr. Charlie Hollop, attending most of the games and cheering on his sons? Yes, indeed. I believe Mr. Hollop is the greatest parent fan in BL baseball history, with lines like, "You got 2 ducks on the pond, let's bring them in." And he'd be in my BL fan Hall of Fame if we had one. He's just a wonderful man. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Sean Hollop in the Boys Latin Athletic Hall of Fame. Gene Ubriaco. Gino, you're in the back somewhere, right? There you go. Where are you? Gene was a 6-year Laker. Coach Butch Meisel calls Gene, quote, the best hockey player to ever play for BL. And of course, we all know that his dad was an NHL player and coach and came to Baltimore to coach the American Hockey League team that I think it was the Clippers that we used to have. And the Skipjacks. Sorry about that. As an 8th grader, he scored 3 goals in a game against Gilman at the Baltimore Arena. 8th grader. And Butch, in 1989, Butch created the inaugural high school hockey league after an absence of about 40 years. The MSA used to have a league, but it died in the 40s, and Butch resurrected it. And that season, the inaugural season, Gene led BL to a 9-1 record, including a 7-1 win over Wild Lake in the championship game. BL earned a state championship that year in hockey. Quite an amazing feat. He also was the hockey coach here and the assistant head with Butch for probably over 20 years. In 1988, the Baltimore Sun described Gene as a rising lacrosse superstar. Coach Shriver said, quote, he had exceptional hands and feet and hands. He was basically a hockey player on grass. He was an integral part of the 1988 championship lacrosse team, and Gene scored a goal in BL's 8-7 win over the undefeated Loyola Dons. In 1989, he practically carried the team on his shoulders, made first team All-Metro in all the newspapers that year, and was also named a high school All-American. At season's end, Coach Shriver said, Gene was the best offensive midfielder in the state. He continued his career down the street at Loyola College and coached BL lacrosse for years here on Lake Avenue and teaching in the middle school, and ran the offense for Coach Shriver. His son Michael was a 4-year starter on the varsity and an incredibly gifted pole player. And Gene is currently the head coach of Loyola Blakefield, but please, ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming Gene Ubriaco into the Boys High Athletic Hall of Fame. All right, we're going to stay in the family because Derek Radeball. Derek, you're in the back. Where are you? Derek is Gene's brother-in-law. The two married sisters, and I believe the sisters are in several halls of fame. So there's a lot of athletic Hall of Fame DNA in the Radeball and Ubriaco families. Derek, too, was a great student and a member of the National Honor Society. He played football his senior year. He also played hockey and lacrosse, and they were his real strengths. Again, Coach Meisel writes, Derek played a major role in the ice hockey team's success. His dynamic shooting and passing abilities, plus his train-wrecking check, ask Gilman and Wild Lake, were major factors in the 88-89 state championship season. He has returned to BL and he's helping Butch as an assistant coach for the BL team now. It's great that Derek's back. Coach Meisel continues, Derek had one of the best slap shots in the league, and after Gene, is considered one of BL's better players. Sorry about that. But that's what Butch said. I got to report it as I hear it. Derek led the team to an undefeated season in 1990 and a berth in the title game. This is the second year of the league. And the Lakers went down to play DeMatha in the old Capitol Center. And this is what's amazing. BL had 10 players, and DeMatha had a 22-man roster. And we lost just 3-2. An amazing game. And of course, the Radeball family is also synonymous with lacrosse. He started at midfield for Coach Shriver for 2 years. And when I was looking him up, the Baltimore Sun had consistently referred to Derek as superb, tough, steady. And it seemed that in every big game at BL and in college, Derek had big days. He played on the first midfield unit his junior year with Gene. He was selected as a second-team All-Metro by the Sun and Evening Sun, and that same year was named a high school All-American. He scored 2 goals for the South team in the boys prep all-star game, won by the South 13-11, and he continued his career again at Loyola, playing in 47 games with 77 points, 41 goals, and 36 assists. And his sons are all currently attending Boys Latin, so it's great still having the Radeballs around. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Derek Radeball and the Boys Latin Athletic Hall of Fame. Just a couple more, we're winding down. Todd Quenzer. Todd, where are you? There you are. Sitting with his brother Jason. They're both inducted tonight. Todd came to BL in the 8th grade and he had 4 letters in soccer. He played football and soccer his senior year. And again, Butch Meisel writes, Todd was a multi-purpose soccer machine. I needed to play him all over the field. He was a rock on defense and a crafty goal scorer. He was probably the toughest player that I've ever coached. Butch also said he had great field presence, he led by example, and always hustled. In a game BL played against St. Paul's his senior year, Todd scored a goal, assisted by his brother Jason, and later in the game, Jason scored a goal, assisted by Todd. Pretty amazing. He didn't start playing lacrosse until the 9th grade and started as a midfielder on the JV that year. But he switched to defense, and every year he got better and better. By his junior year, he was the 4th defenseman, and as a junior, he was a starter. As a senior, he was a starter. Coach Bob Shriver wrote, the 2 brothers really are clones of each other. Whatever you say about Jason applies to Todd, and whatever you say about Todd applies to Jason. Tenacious, physical, tough. He always covered the team's top attackman every game, and in the MSA or the MIAA, that's a tough task. Bob Shriver told the media at the time, there is little doubt that he leaves nothing in the locker room, and when the game begins, his exceptional effort is a joy to watch. The BL defense in 1993 allowed less than 4 goals a game, and it's one of the main reasons because of Todd. He was first team All-Metro that season as well, and played 4 years at Loyola down the street, playing in 40 games, and had a terrific career in college as well. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Todd Quenzer, named the Boys Latin Athletic Hall of Fame. Scott Adler from the class of '94. Scott, over here. He came to BL as well in the 8th grade. Very well liked and was named most popular in the class of 1994 poll. He excelled in all 3 sports, football, basketball, and lacrosse. And so please hold that thought in your head, and we'll explain later. He was a 2-way player in football. He was a running back and a receiver and a defensive back. He was a member of that famous team that beat Calvert Hall 3-0. He was a scholar athlete represented his senior year, and Drew Hall wrote, he was conscientious on and off the field. He played guard for Coach Gelston, and in 2 years scored 299 points. Coach Shriver wrote, he was tireless with unbelievable will, who never gave up on anything. And this is probably the best line that Coach Shriver has said about anybody in a long time. If you had 10 Scott Adlers on your team, you would never lose a game. Again, I think that statement is as good a description of Scott's impact on BL athletics as it gets. Shriver called him one of the best defensive middies in the league at the time. And as a senior, he was a captain of all 3 teams, football, basketball, and lacrosse, and MVP of all 3 teams in the same academic year. Nothing else needs to be said about Scott, and I believe it's the first and only time that's been accomplished in BL athletic history where a student was named MVP of all 3 sports. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Scott Adler in the Boys Latin Athletic Hall of Fame.
Okay, folks, we've got Tim Berger, class of '95. Tim Berger is the son of the beloved BL teacher and administrator, Kate Berger, who passed away in 2017. He was a 12-year Laker. He was the oldest of 3 brothers to attend BL. Bobby Shriver said this, Tim set a wonderful path for his 2 younger brothers to follow. Tim was steady, reliable, and as smart a player as any. He was a coach on the field, and you never had to tell him something twice. In football, Tim was a 2-way player. He was a receiver on offense and a linebacker on defense. He was not big at 5 feet 10 inches and 145 pounds, but no one was tougher pound for pound. Tim was one of the captains that helped beat our arch rival St. Paul's for the first time in 5 years, 21-0. At the end of the season, he was honored as BL's nominee as the National Football Foundation Scholar Athlete Banquet. In wrestling, Tim was a force. He finished 4th in the '93 MSA tournament at 112 pounds. The team finished 2nd in the MSA League, standing and 2nd in the MSA tournament. During his senior year, Tim had a record of 27-4 with 16 pins and captured the MIAA championship title at 135 pounds. Coach Curry shared this. Tim was technically sound. He had grit and was a tireless worker. It was no surprise that he became our first MIAA champ. Coach Hall weighed in. I had the privilege to coach Tim in wrestling and lacrosse. I never coached a more determined, hardworking, and take no prisoners type of kid. He was coachable, never complained, and always had a great attitude. Timmy epitomized what it meant to be the best that you can be in the classroom and also in the sporting arena. Tim played 2 years of varsity lacrosse for Coach Schreiber. Bobby said this, that his savvy play along with his fine athletic ability made him a very effective midfielder. His midfield unit was the most consistent unit offensively all year. At the end of the year, the Baltimore Messenger named Tim its Athlete of the Year. Please welcome Tim Berger to the BL Hall of Fame.
Butch Meisel, honorary alumnus, class of '09. Butch. Butch began his career at BL in 1980, and I think just the name Butch Meisel and BL Athletics basically says it all, because he's done it all here at BL. He's dedicated to BL Athletics like no other that has ever been here. He's coached Lakers soccer teams for 15 years, taking over for Coach Schreiber in 1985. He won 2 JV titles in '83 and '84, and won a varsity title his first year in 1985. Again, in '86, his team ran the table with a record of 16-0 and won the MSAB conference with superstars Steve Nichols, Jeff Ulala, and again, arguably the greatest team in BL soccer history. And at the end of the season, Butch was named the Baltimore Sun's Coach of the Year. I think it's the first and only time we've had a soccer coach be named Coach of the Year. Yeah, Butch. He won the title again in '94 and in '96. His 2001 team was unbeaten in the regular season, and the first rounds of the playoffs, they went 19-0 and lost a crushing heartbreaker to Gilman down at Johns Hopkins. So overall, he won 5 varsity titles, including and 2 JV titles. Again, he started the interscholastic hockey program and has coached hockey here at BL for 35 years. He also served in the baseball program for 29 years, an amazing accomplishment. His son Chris is a member of the class of 2004, and again, Butch was named an honorary alumnus in 2009. And just this fall, both St. Paul's and Boys Latin got together to have a challenge cup for soccer, and the 2 schools agreed that going forward each year, the 2 schools will vie for the Schindler Meisel Cup. And the good news is, on the first game this year, BL has the cup for the year. We won the game 1-0. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Butch Meisel in the BL Athletic Hall of Fame. Can we get all the class of 2022 to stand up for one more applause?